This is a tragic case from where I'm sitting. I'm not sure that I'll ever understand what these parents were thinking or doing to, I guess I would have to say, literally watch their child starve to death.
Could you imagine spending decades or even your entire life in prison? If you aren't in the situation these convicts faced when their sentencing verdict was announced, then you won't know. Was there any regret in their actions? What was their reaction to getting caught? These reactions indicate something about why they committed the crimes in the first place, perhaps by revealing their emotionality and sometimes violence. In today's video, we have listed the top 5 female convicts' freakouts after being given a life sentence. So let's start. Number 1 is Diana Joan Lovejoy. It was a dramatic finale to the trial as the defendant fainted during the jury's reading of their verdict on a botched murder-for-hire plot against her ex-husband. During a dramatic jury verdict hearing Monday in a murder-for-hire case targeting her ex-husband, a California defendant fainted as the jury read its verdict. Upon being found guilty of conspiracy and attempted murder, Diana Lovejoy, 45, collapsed in court, prompting loud gasps from the audience. 30 minutes later, the court reconvened and Lovejoy was wheeled out and taken to a hospital by paramedics, Fox 5 San Diego reported. As part of the plot, gun instructor Weldon McDavid Jr., 50, was also convicted of attempted murder and assault with a deadly weapon. She met McDavid at a gun range where she was taking a lesson, and the pair planned the crime together. As a private investigator, he claimed to have information about Lovejoy's estranged husband, Greg Mulvihill, according to prosecutors. Prosecutor Jody Breton told jurors Mulvihill was instructed to pick up a package containing materials related to Lovejoy at a remote dirt road. Mulvihill and a co-worker, Jason Kovac, drove to the area together to find a package taped to a power pole. Kovac testified that a person with a rifle pointed at them was seen lying down in the bush. As the shooting erupted, the witness and Mulvihill fled. Number 2 is Tatiana Fusari. A mother stayed silent in the moments before a Kent County judge sentenced her to life in prison for starving her baby to death. Tatiana Fusari declined despite being allowed to speak before Judge Paul Denenfeld on Wednesday, November 17th. According to Fusari, her husband attacked her repeatedly and forbade her from going into Mary's room at night during her trial. At work, Fusari was breastfeeding Mary daily and letting her husband feed her pureed fruits and vegetables. The jury's verdict, according to Denenfeld, was rational and reasonable. This is a tragic case. I'm not sure I'll ever understand what these parents were thinking or doing to, I guess I'll have to say, literally watch their child starve to death, he said.
I'm not sure that I'll ever understand what these parents were thinking or doing to, I guess I would have to say, literally watch their child starve to death.
According to defense attorney Damian Nunzio, she plans to appeal outside the courtroom. I think her testimony bore out in court that she doesn't believe she did anything wrong, he said. She had formed a perspective given to her by Seth Welch. While Nunzio said he believed the jury paid attention during the testimony, he acknowledged that the autopsy photos were overwhelming. It was a very complicated case. I've tried many murder cases, but this was probably one of the most complicated just by the issues involved, he said. Third one is Michelle Blair. The mother of 2 Detroit children who admitted to killing them and hiding their bodies in a deep freezer was sentenced to life in prison Friday morning. The Detroit mother sentenced to life without parole for killing 2 children and hiding their bodies in a deep freezer was apparently remorseless. Michelle Blair, 36, was allowed to speak in court about the horrific case of her arrest in March and displayed her anger as before. As horrendous as everyone thinks I am, that's fine, but I'm the only one who does not lie, she said, blasting the fathers of her dead children for being absent from their lives. The death of her children, Stormy Ann Blair, 13, and Stephen Gage Berry, 9, is initially being charged with 2 counts of capital murder, 2 counts of premeditated murder, and 1 count of torture. She claims she killed Stephen in 2012 and Stony Ann in 2013 because they were sexually assaulting her now 8-year-old son, which she confessed to in court last month. During Blair's sentencing, Judge Dana Hathaway told her that the greatest tragedy was taking away her children's chances. They lived in terrible fear of you, and I find that so sad in this case, Hathaway said. After all is said and done, you imposed the death penalty on your children. Blair, who remained stone-faced, responded, I did. Blair's older son, 8, and daughter, 17, are still undecided about their fate. Both Stephen and Stony Ann were fathered by those children's fathers. Blair cared for their children, which they are trying to regain custody of in court. A decision may be made by the end of the month. Fourth is Elizabeth Escalona. I am a monster. A mother sentenced to 99 years in prison for gluing her toddler's hands to the wall and beating her to the point of coma was sentenced to prison today in Dallas. In stark contrast to yesterday, when she openly cried after a prosecutor asked her to count the bruises she inflicted on her daughter after the September 2011 attack, Elizabeth Escalona, 23, showed no emotion when the verdict was announced. After pleading guilty to her crimes in July, Escalona testified extensively in her own defense and requested her sentence to be commuted to a year of probation. I hit her, kicked her constantly, and she didn't deserve that, said Escalona yesterday. Only a monster does that. District Judge Larry Mitchell agreed Escalona may have experienced sexual abuse in the past, but he said the simple fact remains that she viciously assaulted her child. Your child was beaten to death savagely, he said. Dallas County Prosecutor Erin Price said she had not accepted responsibility for her actions. Elizabeth lies to hide the evil, said Price. During a potty training crisis in September 2011, Escalona's other children alleged that she attacked Jocelyn Cedillo. The mother is accused of hitting her daughter with a milk jug, kicking her in the stomach, and sticking her hands to a wall with a glue known as superglue. An expert testified at her sentencing hearing that Jocelyn suffered bleeding in her brain, a fractured rib, multiple bruises, and bite marks. She also spent a few days in a coma. Doctors found glue residue, paint chips on her apartment wall, and some skin that had been torn off her hands. A state district judge has sentenced her to prison for savagely beating her child on September 7, 2011. Since Jocelyn's recovery, her grandmother now cares for her and her grandmother's 4 other children, including the baby who was born this year. According to prosecutors, Escalona has a history of violence and is unfit to be a mother. A recording was played in which Escalona threatened to kill her mother as a teenager. It was said that she had been a gang member and smoking marijuana since she was 11 years old. The last one is Erica Mae Butts and Shanita Latrice Cunningham. On Friday, the case's prosecutor announced that 2 South Carolina women had been sentenced to life in prison for killing a toddler in 2009. The Charleston judge sentenced Erica Mae Butts, 25, and Shanita Latrice Cunningham, 25, to life in prison on Thursday, 2 years to the day since 3-year-old Serenity Richardson died in their care. A guilty plea was entered in August. It is nearly impossible for words to accurately describe what these women did to that poor little girl, said Elizabeth Gordon, assistant managing solicitor for Charleston County. They beat her repeatedly with a belt and plastic coat hangers. You can see the outlines of the strikes on this child's body. There is not one area of this child's body that was unharmed except for the soles of her feet. The abuse occurred while Serenity was visiting Butts and Cunningham in Summerville, South Carolina, where Butts was Serenity's godmother and her mother's best friend. Serenity's mother, Aisha Richardson, lives in Detroit. The explanation they gave for the beatings was that Serenity had a potty accident, Gordon said. Their explanation is, we didn't know that we would kill her. They knew what they were doing, Gordon said. When Serenity became unresponsive on November 3, 2009, they put bleach under her nose and they put ice on her to try to revive her, Gordon said. A 911 call was made by Butts' mother. According to Gordon, the child had died for some time when medics arrived. She said this was the worst crime she had prosecuted against special victims in 4 years. Most child abuse-related homicides are caused by someone making a bad decision one day. Every single day, Butts and Cunningham decided to beat that child. Child Welfare Information Gateway estimates that 1,770 children died from abuse or neglect in 2009, according to the Department of Health and Human Services. According to the department, children's abuse deaths are underreported by most researchers. Children under the age of 4 are the most common victims. That's it for today. Hope you liked the video. If so, remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.